Okay, so welcome everyone once again. Let's start off immediately with an Amsterdam-based distillery, Spirited Union. You have two samples of them in your tasting kit, and I would like to introduce to you Rogier Post, sales manager. And by the looks of it, he's at the distillery, so maybe he can give a quick tour as well. So Rogier, take it away.
All right, thanks. So yeah, my name is Rogier. Roger, for the ones amongst you speaking English, saves you a little bit of the weird pronunciation, and I respond to Roger as well. So yeah, welcome virtually at Spirited Union Distillery. Very happy to be part of this cool tasting that Gianni organized. Thank you, first of all. Really looking forward to give you guys a little bit more background information about Spirited Union Distillery, who we are, what we do, and what kind of products that we make. We are a relatively young company. Just last week we turned 4 years old. So we are a crowdfunded based company in Amsterdam. Started 4 years ago with a new way of making flavored rum. I think that's very important to point out. I'm happy to be amongst other really cool distilleries in the Netherlands that make rum all the way from scratch. But I do want to point out that we make a flavored rum, which we work with single origin rums from all over the world, and we like to flavor them in a natural way. So to take you a little bit back in history about where it all started and how we began making rum, is basically the company was founded by Ruben, who is my partner in business, and he started 4 years ago with the idea like, let's make a spiced or flavored rum, but done in a proper way. So he was kind of frustrated is a big word, but frustrated by the fact that there are so many like adulterated or fake rums on the market. I'm not going to blame on any other existing brands, but I think we all know what we're talking about when you look at the flavored or spiced rum shelves that don't have to do a lot with actual rum anymore. So this is the time when actually Union 55 Rum was founded. This was the original name of the first product that was actually released under the name of Union. I'll grab the bottle, which is currently known in our range as Union Spice and Sea Salt, formerly known as Union 55 Rum. So some of you maybe in the tasting might know. Can I see some hands who still remember the name Union 55 Rum? Cool, good to see. There's still some people that know where we came from. So what Union 55 Rum basically was, and I also give away the name, because who in the room knows what the name 55 actually comes from? No hands, cool. So what we did with the rum, basically we took a single origin rum, as we call it. So we took a 3 to 5 year old blend rum from Barbados, which we sourced at our very good partners at Scheer, probably a well-known name amongst people in this group. We took that rum and we started infusing or macerating, which is the official word for it, with real spices. Think about Madagascan vanilla or Peruvian cacao nibs or cloves from Madagascar as well. We used cacao nibs and we basically macerated them in rum. So these jars that you see in the back here, this is Bajan rum infused with cloves, but in a very high concentrate. So this is super strong to drink. You cannot drink this on its own because you basically pass out on the flavor of cloves. But what we do with that bit is we blend it back together with that base rum from Barbados. And we do that same process with the Madagascan vanilla, with the cloves, with the cardamom. And obviously there's the salty bit in the name that already gives it away, like salted and spiced rum. Where we were inspired by the culinary world, and we add a touch of salt to the rum to enhance all these other flavors. Just like a chef does with a dish, you add a pinch of salt to the rum, and then you basically bring all flavor alive. So this is where it all started 4 years ago. I basically, on day one, I joined Ruben in the adventure of presenting this relatively new style of rum into the world. Literally taking a bottle under the arm and going to the best cocktail bars and bars and restaurants in town and start presenting them this new style of rum. Luckily, it was very well received. Most people loved it, especially the good bartenders who said, like, finally, a proper spiced or flavored rum that we can work with in our cocktails, in our mixed drinks and everything. Now, a bit fast forward, I'm speaking from the Spirited Union Distillery nowadays, which is basically, we didn't have that in the very beginning. We were doing outsourced production at Herman Janssen, probably also known among some people in this group, which there we gave them our recipe and he said, can you put this in a bottle and we'll just focus on selling it to bars. At some point we were like, okay, maybe we need to make something extra, so something, a new flavor in our range. And that's when we wanted to make Union Lemon and Leaf, which is basically, we like to call it Union, or basically the first white botanical rum in the world. It's easy to say in the world because you know that you're the first one doing it. But we basically created a white flavored rum, which is most easily compared with Bacardi Lemon, maybe, to drop a name or a style of rum. But then how we did it, basically we took a rum from Mauritius this time as a base rum, so an agricole style rum, sugarcane juice style. And then we started redistilling it in our little baby still, because I see Patrick sitting in front of a huge still. But this is our baby little still here in the back. It's just a 50-liter still. This also gives it away that we don't distill the rum here from scratch, but that's never possible in a still like that. What we do is we take that rum in, and maybe you've seen it when I was just walking around, but it's a very not romantic view, but this is how rum actually comes in bulk, in an IBC container, as we call it, 1,000 liters of rum inside there. We take the rum, we take real Amalfi lemon skins, and we put that in the still with the rum and pull off a new distillate. So Amalfi lemon in Mauritius style rum, and then basically you enhance all the essential oils from the rum, from the skins from the lemons, and then that marries with the rum, and that becomes a new flavor agent, if you'd like to call it like that. We do the same with eucalyptus leaves, and there's some black Sarawak pepper, there's some tea, so it becomes a very full and herbal flavoring rum, and ideally to mix with your tonic actually. So if you're like a rum and tonic, this is basically the rum to go for. In the Netherlands, it's not very common to drink a rum and tonic, but trust me, in the Caribbean, they do a lot. And basically, this rum is made for it, to drink it like that. But also, classic rum and coke mix goes really well because of the high lemon effect. So when we had this own distillery, we could do a lot more innovation, a lot more new flavor techniques that the guys at our previous external production location were really fond of doing this new kind of techniques. They said, well, we're not going to burn our fingers in these new theories that you guys have. So you find your own place to do that. So we did that, and we found this existing distillery here in Amsterdam, which in the weekends we also open to the public, where people are able to make their own version of a botanical rum. So in the back here, we're now obviously in lockdown. So you see a bit of our lab table here, and this is usually where the people start shopping their botanicals, and they control their own little still, and then they choose their own Mauritius rum or Barbados rum as a base, and then they actually start making their own version of a botanical rum. So you pick your own botanicals and your own base rum, and then you take home a bottle of your own created flavor. So that's what we usually do here. And then at some point, as we all know, lockdown came, all bars closed, and we were doing pretty well without being very arrogant in bars and restaurant scene. But we didn't have a good establishment in the retail shops, like bottle shops. And I honestly also think that our product, like the spice and sea salt and the lemon and leaf, are maybe a bit too niche for those kind of markets. So at some point we thought, let's make some really cool, new, exciting flavored rums that could also survive properly in bottle shops without using a little bit less explanation maybe. So that's the point basically where we're trying our new rums today. The first one is the Queen Pineapple and Spice rum. As the name gives it away, we have pineapple flavor, but the name Queen Pineapple actually comes from the fact that we flavor this rum by using the mini, like the baby pineapple. So it's Queen Victoria pineapple, which is the race with the little baby ones. So how we make the rum is for this rum, we take a base, which is rum from Panama. So Panamanian Cascade rum, up to 3 years old. So that means it's a blend of, there's 1 and 2 and 3 years old rum in there. We get that in as a base. So that arrives in that little less charming, as I just showed you, IBC container from our good friends over at Skier. And then what we do with the rum, we take those mini Victoria pineapples, so we skin them first, the skins and the rum, we throw them in this still, and then we create a re-distillate product of that. What we also do is we infuse the flesh of the pineapple in the Panamanian rum, and we leave to soak that in there for about 3 weeks' time. So that will also give all the fruity flavor to the Panamanian rum. And then also the extra steps is that the spice, which is the second part of the name of the bottle, Queen Pineapple and Spice, that comes from a clove distillate and a cinnamon distillate. So again, as I just explained, rum goes in the still with those spices, and we distill separate distillates of that. All of those ingredients, how do you call them? They go back into the final blend. And the final blend, we've been a bit busy today, but here you see in the back, you see that blending tank. So that's where we blend the final recipe, which creates about 500 liters of final product. And then we bottle it at that point. So we've done the pineapple bottling today, actually. So this is actually how the rum is created. In all transparency, I think also it's good to be very transparent. We also add a touch of sugar to the rum. This rum sits about 18 grams of added sugar per liter. So in that case, according to the new law and legislation, everything coming up, we would be still able to call it a rum, but actually we're not, because we flavor rum. We add flavors to it. And this is also the case why we claim this new category of botanical rum. As you would buy a bottle of ours, it says botanical rum on it, which gives you the hint that there's rum which is flavored with botanicals. And botanicals is a word that basically comes from everything that comes from a plant. Basically, that's a botanical. So that was a lot of info, I think. Any first questions?
Quite a nicely balanced product. Quite a nicely balanced product.
Yeah, it's to be honest, if you smell it, the first time I smelled the product, well, not being like the actual product developer here, but I thought I was going to drink a very, very sweet liquid because that's how it smells. It smells like candy almost, but that's the result of using those skins from the Queen Victoria pineapple in the rum. That really gives a lot of fragrant smell.
And you don't have any problems with the oxidation of the extract of the pineapple? I can remember, because when I grew up, I grew up in the distillery here. My father made a pineapple liqueur, so not a pineapple rum, but a pineapple liqueur. Mm-hmm. Same proper procedure, real pineapples, peeled, extracted in alcohol in this case, and it was wonderful for 3 weeks.
Yeah.
And after 3 weeks, it went south, and so we never actually bottled it. But it was. How do you prevent that from happening? Do you add any vitamin C or something to prevent that oxidation?
That's mostly the case of using enough high proof alcohol in the beginning stages. So everything is prepared at roughly 60% ABV. And only at bottling, that's where we dilute the stuff with demi water. So that's that might prevent it from.
Maybe that's the trick.
Yeah.
Oh, now you're giving me a trick. And now I'm gonna.
Shit, we're gonna see a Zuidam pineapple soon.
Oh, liqueur, maybe. Yeah, it's still there. We still have the labels. My father already had the labels made.
As if Zuidam doesn't have enough products in the portfolio.
Yeah, no, we are short on products in the portfolio.
Add another one. But,
I think my brother will love it. Another product, yeah.
So here we have one question. Are you willing to disclose which distillery in Mauritius your base rum comes from for the lemon rum?
Good question. Legally, we cannot do that because we work with Spear, as you might know. They're the biggest bulk rum supplier in the world. They have certain agreements with certain distilleries. Some of the distilleries that we work with are okay with it. For instance, Spice and Sea Salt, Foursquare Distillery is fine with the fact that we say that it's Foursquare Distillery, even though we don't state it on our label anywhere, because we don't like to kind of surf on their reputation that they have in the world of making outstanding rums. We like to have our own fame, like this is the rum that we make. So saying goodbye to some last colleagues leaving here. But so no. And in the case of Mauritius rum, we work with distilleries that don't really like that we are stating their names on the label. What I can give away is that it's a blend of actually 3 distilleries on Mauritius that we work with. It's not a single distillery rum.
Not single estate. Okay, cool. Well, that gives some insight into, because Mauritius has 4 or 5 distilleries for people who don't know, who have no idea, but not a very big island in the Indian Ocean, but yeah, quite some nice distilleries and some great rum coming from there. So keep an eye on that as well. As you can probably taste if you buy the specific lemon rum from
yeah. A little side info, not to go into the lemon and leaf too much because we don't include it in the tasting, but we at first the idea was to go for a really like agricole style rum, and later on we found while doing some testing on some guinea pigs, actual people, that the agricole style is not for everyone, and we wanted to create a rum which is a little bit more tamed, as to call it like that. So we chose to blend it with specific styles from Mauritius to still have that grassy character of the agricole style rum, but not to make it too much of that. So that's the reason why we went for a blend of different distilleries coming from there. So not to take up too much of your time for Spirits Union, I think it's a good moment to taste. I've opened up the chat box here as well, so I can say, can you give more information why you chose for the pineapple rum? Pretty easy example or explanation. Pineapple is a super popular flavor. Everybody loves pineapple. We will notice it when we smell the coconut rum in a bit. When I'm out on the streets and I'm sampling the rum and I let people smell and try the pineapple, everybody loves it. And coconut, you hate it or you love it. So in terms of why we chose pineapple, I think it's just out there. Just being honest, we knew that it would be a success if we created. If we look at our maybe a good other famous example of a good rum producer of the guys from Plantation, we just know that their Plantation pineapple. It sells like, yeah. So
you use Plantation and Foursquare in one presentation is a bit dangerous.
He's a really bold.
Luckily, Richard isn't here. I see Richard Bleska is also in the tasting.
I don't think most people will understand this, but there's a bit of beef, if you can say, between those 2 brands. But we'll not go into that.
That will fill up the evening, though.
Well, yeah, maybe after all the presentations we can do a Q&A and dive in deeper. Hey, Rogier, I have a couple of questions about. You started out with telling us about Spirited Union, how everything came to be, and that you've decided not to distill rum from scratch, right? So. At first you didn't have the facilities, you didn't have the distillery, right? You were working together with Herman Jansen, as you said, but is that something you are aiming for, to distill your own rum in the future?
To be honest, we do have some plans to looking at like upscaling that little still here in the back. It won't be for making all our base rums ourselves. because, as I said before, we select a certain single origin rum because it has a certain flavor profile, because they just make rum in a certain way in Barbados, or for instance in Panama for the pineapple rum. We select that as a base, and then we start doing our tricks on top of that flavor profile. So it's not our intention to start creating a new, or basically reinventing the wheel, as we have a saying.
It's fun though.
It's fun, definitely, it's fun, but that's not really what we do. At some point, I would love to be able to do it. We also, I visited our friends at Rummieclub recently as well, and I love what they're doing over there, and it's really fascinating.
It's not that difficult.
But as you can see, also our location here is not really built to do that. We have those 2,000-3,000 liter tanks over there, which is basically for storing the most popular rum at the moment, the Barbados and the Mauritius, and are probably going to change to Panama now because of the new pineapple rum. But then this is also it. So we don't really have the space to produce the numbers that we're already selling in this actual location here. So that's we're just built in that way. But I would love to do it at some point, definitely.
Okay, great. So I think I don't see people drinking anymore. So please, with your story, I think everyone is waiting for the next sample. So
therefore,
cheers.
Cheers. Hope you enjoy it. So again, if you smell it, you might think that you're going to drink an incredibly sweet liquid, but we still left space for the actual rum to be tasted. And then the sweet flavors, they do linger on a long time in the palate. By the way, we also have a very strong strategy of that people should drink rum as they like it. But we also like to inspire people to drink rum in new ways. So normally people would always say, I drink rum as a rum and coke, or I drink rum neat, or as a dark and stormy. But we say just, go out there and try rums in new ways. So in the Netherlands here, we have a collaboration with the guys from Fevertree, which you'll definitely recognize in bars and restaurants when we see perfect serve suggestions. For this rum, we do go back a bit to like the traditional ginger beer mixer, but then we call it like a tropical storm instead of your classic dark and stormy. So you get that nice little pineapple twist touch to your dark and stormy recipe. So I've just heard from the guys at Wonderful, which is the importer of Fevertree here in the Netherlands, that a lot of bars, when they reopen in the summer, they will start featuring those tropical stormies on the menu. So moving on to the next rum, to the organic coconut rum. I have the actual bottle here. You of course only have like a little tube, but if you ever go looking for it, this is what it will look like. Also we developed this rum within the last lockdown period. Coconut obviously being kind of a thing in rum world. I think we all know Malibu. After Malibu, there came Coco Canoe, because I'm not going to talk too long about Malibu, because technically that has nothing to do with rum anymore. It's 21% rum based, like a liqueur. And then they came, I used to be a bartender in the past, and then at some point we had like Coco Canoe, which was the new best coconut rum that you could find out there. And it's still like very sugary and full on coconut flavor. Then at some point came Aluna coconut rum based in the UK. I'm not sure if some of you have tried it before, but I really like the liquid. It's a really good product. And then I thought, well, we do rum, we do flavored rum. Why not make a real, like properly made coconut rum? So how we went to work is basically in the same process as with the pineapple rum that we tried before. We went sourcing for the perfect base rum for this coconut rum. This time it's from Belize, actually. It's an organic rum directly from the rainforest. And people into the rum world might know the actual distillery that I'm talking about. Again, we don't state it on our label, but the base rum is actually coming from Kopali. There's also a rum brand around in the world that have their sugarcane juice rum under the brand Kopali out there. That's actually the same distillery that we use the base rum from. So sugarcane juice as a base for this rum. Then it's what we do with it. So we get it in, again, in a not so pretty looking IBC container. It's unaged, It's still young and fresh, and we thought that would really match the flavor profile of that coconut rum that we wanted to make. So what we do with it, we infuse it with toasted coconut flakes. By toasting coconut flakes, you really get that rich and nutty flavor from coconut flakes. And we leave that to macerate in that rum for about 3 weeks time again. Then we also make a distillate. So we take that base rum separately and we put it in the little still in the back with cacao nibs. So that's raw bits of cacao. So also I really think you get that on the nose. If you smell the rum, you get that rich, nutty and cacao flavor. And then there's also a touch of the vanilla tincture, which is, I'll tell you a secret, it's the same tincture that we use again in the original Union, so the Madagascar vanilla tincture. Then probably the most tricky part of it comes into the rum, and if you already tried it, you feel that it's really rich in texture. It's watered down, not with demineralized water, but with organic coconut water. So this is where we bring the rum from 60 to 38% ABV of the bottling strength. And that's what gives it this nice and rich and full body. So yeah, that's what it is. And it's also our first officially labeled organic rum. So all the ingredients that we use in the rum are from an organic origin. Enjoy.
Cheers, everyone. Rogier, one question we already have. So I think you have some new fans already. Where can people buy your rums? I want to get into that right now, but that's a question that has popped up. So take your time in giving an answer on that one. But I also have another question about the rums you've created. So what I've noticed is that you use base rums from different countries, different distilleries, and so take me or take us into the process of creating a new rum. Do you start with, okay, we have a flavor profile, or this is the flavor we would like to have, and then work backwards and then find the base rum, or do you get offered the base rum and you create from you build from there? What's
no, we like the first move that you say that is correct. So we want to create we say begin with flavor. So we work from flavor. So if I think like coconut rum, then we start calculating backwards. Okay, coconut, what other flavor elements are there in there? If you think of coconut, you have the young fresh coconut, like where the coconut water is actually coming from, the green coconut. That's young, that's fruity, that's fresh. So therefore you're already being pushed kind of in a direction of using like sugarcane juice rum, agricole, fresh style, like this direction. And obviously, as we all know, the world of rum is so wide, so there's so much varieties in there. And we have the luck that we have this very close partnership with the guys at Scheer. So I can literally just go to Scheer on my bike and then say, okay, what do we have on offer? What can we play with? What can we work around with? And then there's obviously also the world from botanicals, which is so wide. And then you just start thinking, we're lucky and blessed to have a team of product developers here, which is they really have their background in working with real natural ingredients. And they know what would work well with certain flavors. So we start with flavor and then we work our way backwards. And at some point we have a selection and kind of a hinge already like, okay, this is the base origin that I want to be working with. Obviously also we're looking at a kind of a spread, like we have 6 flavors in the range at the moment. So next to spice and sea salt, which is Bajan, Barbados based, we have the lemon and leaf Mauritius based, we have pineapple, which is Panama based, so the coconut is Belizean based. We have sweet orange and ginger, which is Jamaican based. So we have also telling you off the record, but that's Clarendon and Hampton Estate blended in there as a base. And then we have our pink grapefruit and rose rum, which is kind of special. We made like a pink rum as well, which is, if you can look at it properly, it's very slightly pinky in color, but it's not like artificial pink. It's Swaziland rum in there actually, so South African rum from Eswatini, which we use as a base. Super light and clean in flavor profile. As a rum connoisseur, you wouldn't probably recognize this as a rum. We sometimes like to bitch on Bacardi, like they say, oh, it's like vodka. This is even more neutral than Bacardi. So it's column still, South African style rum, but we use it on purpose because we wanted to create a very light and clean style of rum, which you would actually treat almost as a tonic or as a gin and drink as a rum and tonic, or mix it with a rose lemonade and have it light. But then actually be drinking rum and don't have all the bitter flavor from juniper berries and that kind of stuff. So that's a bit. So we look at it having a nice spread of rum. And then we have some new projects already, like our innovation plan is already filled up ahead. So we have some cool new stuff coming up soon, later by the end of the year, with different origins again.
Cool. So that was actually my next question. What's in store for us this year? But okay, you've already mentioned that.
There's a number of projects coming up, but we thought like doing 4 new flavors in 3 months' time is already a good thing. Yeah. And then so also, yeah, to connect to the question that was asked before, like where can we buy it? Momentarily, I have today we did our record, so we sold we shipped out 17 pallets in the same time, and that's basically all going into Gallengall next week. So we have the pineapple, coconut, and pink grapefruit rum. They will be listed in 375 stores in the Netherlands of Gallengall. So this is standard assortment. Then if a Gal store is like too small, so they don't have the standard assortment, they can still decide to order it directly on the shelf if they want to sell it. But 375 need to have it at least in the stores. And that's kind of an exclusivity deal. So we have from May onwards, I also be able to sell it to all the other cool independent bottle shops, such as Richard. I spoke to him earlier this week as well, to sell it out there. So until then, it's Gallengall only, and after that, we go nationwide.
Yeah, so that's a nice bridge. In the mail I sent to all of you, I stated that Richard Blesgraaf, who's also from Slijterij Zeewijk, who's also in the call, has been kind enough to offer you guys a discount for the rums tasted in tonight's tasting. But as Rogier had just mentioned, he has an exclusive deal with Gallengall actually until the end of April. So unfortunately, you will not be able to buy their rum from Zeewijk as of yet. But I think Rogier also has, there is a nice offer at Gallengall, and Rogier can tell you all about that now, I think.
Yeah, so also to point out, like Richard and I also from the very beginning of Union, we know each other obviously, because Richard is, I think, in my eyes, the established rum specialist in the Netherlands in bottle shops. So we also did the rum and whiskey festival in the past, and where everybody reacted really well on the spicy sea salt rum. But at some point we needed to make like a decision. Gallengall basically offered me the fact like, okay, we really like those new products, we want them, but we want them on an exclusivity deal. So here's, I promise you 375 stores, but I want to have it exclusive until April. Well, who am I to say no against that in times of lockdown when all Horeca sales were basically down?
You would be a lousy sales manager if you've said no.
Sorry?
You would be a lousy sales manager if you have said no.
Yeah, that's, but as I said before, from May onwards, the products will all be available at all bottle shops. I already got a lot of bottle shops that are asking for, can we stock the new flavors as well? I'm also looking at doing like a cool, like full range tasting with Richard in the future. So if you guys are more interested in tasting the other ones as well, we're definitely going to do that from May onwards with Richard. So that will make up for that. But yeah, to give you guys a little like extra for currently where you can buy the Unions, and specifically the pineapple rum, is this cool gift pack. Which is in collaboration with the Aruba Tourism Authority. We are actually giving away, I'm not sure if you can see it properly, but a trip for 2 persons to Aruba. So buying this bottle, you actually get a code which you can fill in on our website, and then we'll give away a trip for 2 to Aruba. Of course, we're living in COVID time, so it's only available when it's actually okay to travel again. But you have until December 2022 to actually take the trip. So as of from next week, these gift packs will be in all Gal and Gal stores. So all of them throughout the Netherlands, and then you can go on the hunt for a nice little trip to the tropics. So yeah.
Thanks, Rogier.
And yeah, maybe the last thing, and then I'll pass the word to the next taster. You might ask, Panama rum in pineapple, why Aruba? But Ruben, the founder from Union, he is actually from Aruba, and he still has some really good connections and roots there. And also in times of COVID, obviously, Aruba was lacking a lot of tourism. So it's kind of a partnering campaign. So we, as a cool new brand in the Netherlands, are actually doing our thing, what we can do to promote tourism towards Aruba again. And so this is where the partnership with the Aruba Tourism Agency came from, to actually do our bit, what we can do.
Sounds great, man. Thanks a lot. Are there any more questions for Rogier at this point? I mean, you can still ask questions during the whole presentation, the whole tasting. I will ask them later on, but if you have them now, I'll be happy to pass them on. Otherwise, I'm looking at the chat. Otherwise, we'll move on to the next sample. I see everyone. No one has a. I see some people with a glass in their hand. So I think everyone's waiting for the next sample to be poured. So we'll move on to Grondel Distillery, and namely Mark Grondel, who is the owner and distiller of the distillery. I think one of the smaller distilleries in tonight's tasting, all the way from Groningen. We have Mark from Groningen, and later on we'll have Patrick all the way from Balen-Nassau. So we're skipping across the Netherlands very nicely here. Some people who do use the Zoom app might have a reaction button on the right, and feel free to stick your hand up if you've asked a question in the chat, or just leave a thumbs up for the presenter or the rum in case. So please do so. Like I said, we'd like to keep this as interactive as possible with Zoom. So Mark, welcome, and take it away.
Well, thank you, Johnny, for inviting me for this rum tasting. Not a lot of people know me, I think, in the rum world, because I'm very small. Not my person, but my distillery is very small. I started 2 years ago, or 1.5 years ago, actually, with my own distillery. I'm not from the food industry or anything. I worked for 20+ years in the zoos. So it's a very big change for me, because I used to work with animals in zoos and with people, and now I work with rum. I make my own rum. I start with molasses. I import from the Caribbean. Well, I don't do it myself, but someone in the Netherlands imports it and I buy it from them. Well, in 1998, I came into contact with rum for the first time. I knew Bacardi, but I don't talk about that now. But before that, in 1998, I went to Panama and I studied squirrel-like monkeys, like 20 centimeters big, and I studied them on a small island in the Panama Canal. And we weren't allowed to drink anything on the island on alcohol, because there was one ranger who was an alcoholic. But you don't want to have 3 students, 20 years old, and say to them, you can't have any alcohol for 7 months. Jenny, are you talking, or I don't hear you? Okay, sorry. So that's when I started drinking rum, because normally we drank beer, but you can't smuggle any beer to an island when it's not allowed, but a bottle of rum you can hide easily. So that's how we started drinking rum. And that was always in my mind. The rum was the best drink in the world. But I studied for, some kind of biologist education. So I thought, nah, we're going to stick with my animals. And I did that for 20 odd years, working in zoos all over the world. And like 3 years ago, I thought, am I going to do this another 20 odd years, or will I do something else? Talking with a lot of people, I thought, no, maybe I should do something in rum. And I started a study for a year in Belgium to become a distiller. And after a year, I started my own distillery. And I'm doing it very small. Like, I bought a still that's less than 100 liters, so it's a little bit bigger than Rogers still, but still it's very small. But for me, it's big enough. I'm doing this part-time at the moment. I'm still building my house. My wife and I moved to Adorp, a little village near Groningen, and we bought an old milk machine factory, and we made a house out of it and a small distillery. And I'm still working on it, but I hope to finish this project this year, and then I can pay my full attention to my rum making. While we were building, I put solar panels on the roof. So we have a very big roof, a lot of solar panels. And I think that's very important. If you start a business, then you have to think of sustainability as well. So all our power is from our solar panels, and also the water for cooling, I reuse again and again and again. I started making rum because I like drinking rum, and it's not all for myself, but I do have the chance of making the rum that I like. Like Roger always also said, he's making things very interesting, and that's what I'm making rum because I like it as well, and I'm trying to make the best rum I can. And that's, for me, that's very interesting. And I hope for a lot of people as well. I'm not Richard Seal. I probably won't become as good as he is, but I'm still going to try. Let's see. I'm starting with molasses from the Caribbean. And I ferment that for about 2 weeks, 10 to 14 days normally. And then I distill it in my little still. And I put it on small barrels. I have European barrels only, like cognac, port, wine casks. And my biggest barrel is 100 liters so far, but every barrel is bigger and bigger, so I'm getting there. I also try to make an aged rum every year. So what you're going to drink now is my first copper seal, and I call it copper seal because there is on the bottle a seal that's copper colored, and it's got my family crest on the seal and also on the label. But by now I'm sold out, So you can't buy any bottles anymore. Too bad. But we can still, well, try what we have in a little package.
So people are actually very lucky tonight. They have new rums from Spirited Union. The latest release, the coconut, was just released, I think, in December. And now you're telling us that this is actually such a small batch that you're already sold out, but we got it. So
yeah, you got it. You were right on time. Yeah. There are still a few liquor stores that still have it as well. But I don't have, yeah, well, you just saw my last bottle. So I'm keeping that for later. But well, this rum has been on French oak and on a port cask, and well, it's been in those barrels for a little over 18 months. So I thought at that age it was good enough to bottle. So I would like some comments of you if you have.
It's very good.
Mark, so cheers everyone again, salute. I already have a question, of course, because I think the first time we met, you sampled, I think it's called the VOC rum.
Yeah, the spiced rum.
Yeah, okay. And you also, I think so can you tell us a bit more about other bottles you have, other releases?
Yeah, I had one aged rum, and that was the copper seal, and that's sold out now. But I regularly make a batch of spiced rum, and that's this bottle here. And it's a spiced rum, but a little different than most spiced rums, but not as different as Spirited Union. I have 5 spices put in here, and it's black pepper, cinnamon, cloves, mace, and nutmeg. Let's see. Yeah, I use my my white rum as a base for this rum, but there's also a little over 10% of my copper seal in there. So I still have a little bit of copper seal that I mix with my spice rum. And well, next to my spice rum, I also have my white rum. Yeah, this is my base rum. This is also what I use for my copper seal. I do make my cuts a little different for my white rum than for the other rums, because when I distill, obviously I take away the heads with the methanol in it. That's the part you don't want in it. It's dangerous, well, more dangerous than ethanol. It's not nice in flavor, so you don't want that in it. But after that, I start collecting, because after the heads, there's a very nice part I find in my rum. So I do add that to the white rum and the other rums, and then the hearts. But there's different parts in the hearts that I use. There's some parts with well, I collected not all in one batch, but I collected sometimes per liter or 2 liters, and then set that aside, and then 1 or 2 liters and put that aside. And there's at every time of all different times, there's all different flavors coming out. And I play with that when I make my white rums. Like last summer, I made a special rum for several cocktail bars in Groningen, and they all wanted a little bit different flavors in it. And by playing with those subparts of my hearts, I can create different rums. And well, the tails, there's a little bit of tails, early tails in there, but the later tails I don't put in my white rum. And well, so that way I can make different white rums as well. And sometimes I play a little bit with yeast, with whiskey yeast or different rum yeasts. But if you want special yeast, then someone's going to talk about that later, I think.
The rum is very spicy, Mark, but I like it a lot. But it's yeah, it's very yeah, it's got a lot of flavor. Almost, yeah, like I said, almost like a spicy flavor. One question popped up. The total age of this Copperfield is 18 months.
18 months, yeah. The youngest barrel was 18 months, and the other was, I think, 20 months.
Okay.
So I call it 18 months.
So,
and normally when I drink it at home, I eat some dark chocolate with it or a piece of cheese or something. That's what I like to combine with this rum. And the spiced rum that combines very well, I think, with Groningen sausages. There's a dried sausage, and that's also got cloves in it, and that complements each other very well, I think.
so I hear a road trip coming up to Groningen, I think.
Oh, you're very welcome.
It sounds good.
In
Rum,
micro distillery.
dark chocolate, cheese. I'm there.
Oh,
Let's do this. Hey,
yeah, like Roger said, he has a very small space, but if you look at my space, it's not even half of what you guys have. So it's and some cocktail bar people from around here, they wanted to see how I distill, and they wanted to have influence on their rum in their bar. So they were there while I was making it. And well, the owner of one of those bars always keeps joking that my distillery is so small. But it's yeah, you can call it a micro distillery.
It's not the size of the pot still that counts, and we'll get back to Patrick later on about that. But because I know he just installed an even bigger pot still. I mean,
of course.
Yeah. Where can people buy your rum at this point, Mark? Do you know where?
There's several liquor stores in the northern part of the Netherlands. There's Jelle in Leeuwarden.
Yep.
Yep. Van der Bos in Emmen. In Vlachtwedde, of all places, there is bij Thijs.
Oh, okay, yeah. Great. Yeah.
And in Groningen, there's Slijterij Groningen. It's on the fish market. And very close to me, there is a small village, well, a little bit bigger than my own village, and the Galangal has it as well.
Okay, so
but if people want to order rum, they can also send me an email, and then I'll arrange that one way or another a bottle comes your way.
And you think that some of these shops still have the Copperfield we're tasting now?
Some of them do, but I don't know if all of them still have them.
Okay, so people, if you like the rum, please go hunt.
Go hunt in the northern part of the Netherlands. Yes.
Yeah. These are big shops. I know Jelle, I know Thijs. They have huge, mainly whiskey shops, but
yep.
Please check their website out. Great guys as well. So please do that. So if are there any questions to Mark at this point? I've been watching the chat. No, not at this point. So okay, maybe later on. So thanks, Mark. I think. Yeah, thank you very much. I think we can move on now to the person I just mentioned a couple of minutes ago, Patrick van Zuidam. I think of most of the people will know the Zuidam Distillers. World famous actually for especially their whiskies. Just picked up another few awards in the last few months at different whiskey shows. So do check their Millstone whiskey out, but they also have great liqueurs. Their core wine is excellent, malt wine. So I think a true master distiller. And Patrick, welcome. I already told people that you have just installed a brand new pot still. I'm not sure if it's the one behind you, but
yeah.
Okay, great. So take it away, Patrick. Welcome.
Hey, Johnny, thank you. First, Mark, my compliments for your rum is actually truly awesome. I really like it.
Thank you.
It's really, really nice.
Good to hear from you. Thanks.
So yeah, we installed some new pot stills. It was already a year and a half ago, I guess. The one behind me is the wash still. We don't call it that in rum distillation, but we are also a whiskey distiller, so we call it the wash still. That holds 17,000 liters of wash. So for rum, yeah.
Like I said, size doesn't matter.
It's only a little bit bigger.
No, if you want to fill casks, it does help a little bit
sure.
to fill your casks more quickly. We do 30,000 liter fermentations. So we have two 30,000 liter fermenters. Well, at least two 30,000 liter fermenters that we use for rum, because we have 6 fermenters altogether. Yeah, and basically rum distillation is quite straightforward and easy. We do it from molasses because the stupid sugar cane doesn't want to grow in Holland. And for the rest, yeah, it's a pretty straightforward production. You dilute the molasses with some water and add yeast. In our case, we always add, I am a bit of a yeast freak. Not only for my whiskies and my Genevers, but also for my rums. I think yeast is one of a very important flavor component. I know Richard Seal doesn't agree with me on that, but okay, we don't have to all agree on things. That's what I say to my wife as well. So the 30,000 liter fermenters are filled with diluted molasses. Yeast is added. And we always mix a rum yeast with a red wine yeast or rum yeast with a brew yeast to create a flavor profile that I'm looking for. We do quite high gravity fermentations because we have all our fermenters are temperature controlled. So I know this is not very customary in rum production, but all our fermenters are temperature controlled. So we do long, slow fermentations with very high gravity mashes. So in this case, we ferment up to 12% alcohol in our fermenters.
How long does the fermentation take place, Patrick?
We ferment between 2 and 3 weeks. A little bit dependent on the yeast strain that we use, but yeah, around 2 to 3 weeks is the. For rum, we stretch it even longer than for the whiskey and Genevers.
Do you use different yeasts for different rums which you produce?
Yeah, you know me, Richard. We've known each other for a long time. You know, I cannot stop tinkering, so I think I'll die tinkering and looking for new flavor profiles. But yeah, so we have, you know, things that we produce every year, like the 3-year-old rum that we have in the glass today. And that, of course, I have to make sure that tastes sort of the same every time I bottle it. So there we mix a rum yeast with a brewer's yeast that we also use for the whiskey fermentation. And then we have other fermentations where I'm a little bit more free what I use. So we use some, you know, funky red wine yeast or champagne yeast or whatever comes across.
So Patrick, maybe I'm not sure how distilling savvy everyone is, but as we've got you now, you've already mentioned fermenting, you've mentioned different types of yeast, fermenters and wash. If you feel free to maybe jump in a bit deeper for maybe everyone. So what happens during fermentation? What's the use of the purpose of the yeast? What happens there? In my opinion, the fermentation is a very important part of any distillation process, especially rum. But that's my humble.
Not especially rum, any distillation.
Any distillation. So okay, thank you. That's my humble opinion. But can you take us through why you think you agree with me on that?
Now, in principle, it's very simple. We are in a very simple business. Basically, fermentation is something that's been happening naturally for millennia. Fruit falls from the tree, starts fermenting by the wild yeast that are in the air. Because, of course, I was talking about the yeast that we add to the wash. But you also have to, before this started, we talked about terroir. There's also such a thing as the wild yeast that are in your distillery, around your fermenters. As soon as you start a distillery, you're going to create some, funky wild yeast in your distillery that will affect everything you freaking do in this distillery, and it will be in your, whiskey washes, and it will be in your rum, wine, whatever you do, it will be there, whether you want it or not. And especially in rum, because the rum wine, of course, is not heated, so you dilute molasses, you add the yeast, and of course, there's no heating involved. That means that it is susceptible to all infections that are around us. In the air around us in the distillery is floating something unique to this distillery. If you go to Judith, or you go to Mark, or you go to Roger, you will find different bacteria and different yeast floating in the air than in my distillery. Not something you can influence, it's something that happens naturally, especially if your distiller like this one has been around for 5 decades. Then you get more and more of this funky yeast floating around that are specific to your distillery, and also mean that something is happening in those fermenters that is typical for what we do here. And if you go to Judith or you go to Mark, and they use exactly the same recipe with the same yeast, they will produce a slightly different rum from the same ingredients because of whatever happens, the size of the fermenter, the wild yeast and the wild bacteria involved in your distillery. So as soon as you dilute the molasses, it's going to get infected on purpose by us with the yeast that we add to it, but also by the yeast that are floating around us and the lactic acid bacteria that are floating around us in the air. And during the fermentation period, different flavors are formed. So you get, from the yeast, you get fatty acids formed, you get higher alcohols formed, you get esters formed from the yeast. And then you add bacteria into the mix, you get acids formed from the bacteria. They will interact with everything that the yeast is producing. So you get really complex scala of chemicals being formed in that fermentation.
So if we add to that, you already talked about the length of the fermentation. We have a question from Simon who said,
it gets worse. The longer you ferment, the worse it gets.
Simon has a question: with such long fermentation and a different yeasts, does this affect your distillation choices? I'm not sure if he's talking about the type of still, but can you?
I don't have much choice in the type of still because I only have pot stills.
Yeah. So,
but it does. It might affect the cuts that you make, because you want to, you're aiming for a specific flavor profile. Then you have to adjust your cuts to the flavor profile that you want to get. So once the fermentation is over, you have a complex, brew in the fermenter with all the flavors in there that you will later find in your rum. The only thing we can do in distillation is change the percentages, change how the flavors interact together. So you can, diminish some flavors, you can enhance other flavors, but all the flavors that you get in fermentation will end up in your glass. All of them, whether you want to or not. So you better do this fermentation right, because everything else depends on that. So the fermentation is, I agree with you, 100% is the most important step in any kind of distillation process, because this is where all the flavors are formed. Distillation is always only about selecting flavors, and then you cannot, in simple pot stills like behind me, you cannot select everything out. So you always end up with flavors that you have in the fermenter in your glass.
Yeah, so the question was, I think Simon added something. The question was about, do you have a choice in the still? But I mean, you all have some kind of pot still. So in this case, the question is, well, no, fermentation is very important. You that's where you create the yeast actually create a certain flavor profile that is put through a still. In all your cases, a pot still.
And the flavor profile is, Johnny, sorry I interrupt you.
Sure.
The flavor profile is dependent on lots of different factors. Yeah, it's dependent on the yeast that you add, the yeast that is floating around in your distillery, the bacteria that's floating around in your mash, wash, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
For rum, we usually call it wine, but whatever you want to call it. And those cells, they interact together. So everything interacts together. So the complexity is enhanced. The longer you ferment, the longer you get these interactions in between these yeasts and bacteria. And that will create a whole range of new flavor profiles, new esters, new higher alcohols being formed from those interactions.
Yeah. So I think I definitely want to go more into esters and congeners with Rummieclub, I think. But I think maybe we can.
Sorry.
No problem. I do want to ask you maybe after we taste your 3-year-old rum now. I think it's about time. I think people are looking around. Hey, I came here to drink. So I think this is a nice time to pour in the Zuidam 3-year-old, and maybe after that you can elaborate a bit, Patrick, on what Mark started about heads and tails, and so the cuts actually. Maybe people don't know that, and I think it would be nice of you if you can elaborate on that. But maybe you can tell us something about your 3-year-old rum we have in our glass right now.
Well, first distillation or first 3-year-old rum? Choose.
Oh well. Or during, why choose?
Okay.
So while we're drinking 3-year-old rum.
No, after fermentation stops, finishes after like say 2-3 weeks, we put it in a pot still. First distillation, is a very slow distillation. We take about 9 hours for our first distillation. So, but nothing exciting happens. We don't cut anything off. We just put it in a pot still, distill it all up, end up with about 5,000 liters of what we call first distillate. We're not into very complex names here. That raw spirit is, for rum actually quite drinkable, but perhaps not cut out for bottling. So we put it in the spirit still, and we add the foreruns and the after runs of the previous batch. So that means that where Mark said he throws away the foreshots, we do not do that. We recycle them. So we recycle the foreshots and the after runs. So the feints and the heads are recycled into the next spirit run. And that adds more complexity, because these high low boiling alcohols that you find and the low boiling esters. And that's the main reason for cutting the 4 shots off is the low boiling esters. The low boiling esters are very interesting, but the biggest one is ethyl acetate, which rum lovers like, but as a whiskey distiller, I frown upon. So we cut a lot of that out and we bring it back into the next spirit run. By bringing it back into the pot still, you would think if you cut it out, why the fuck would you bring it? Oh, sorry. Why the fuck would you bring it back? It's because bringing it back and bringing it back into contact with copper, you break down that ethyl acetate into a whole shitload of different flowery and floral and fruity esters. So over time, that 4 shots that might be a bit harsh and solvent smelling the first time you cut it off, by bringing it back time after time after time, you'll find that harsh ethyl acetate smell that you get will dissipate and break down into floral and flowery and fruity esters. It is the same thing that they do in cognac, for example, where a lot of ethyl acetate is formed during the fermentation in the wine. There they cut as well, and also they bring back the 4 shots for recycling in those spirit runs.
Yeah, so thanks a lot. I think you have is that the spirit safe behind you? Because I think
yes.
Yeah. So maybe yeah, you can add what that means related to your pot fill. Yeah.
Whoa, okay.
Yeah, almost. don't fall over. And also we have a question from Richard, not related to the spirit safe, but so you guys have what we call a regular pot still, right? So wash and pot still, but as some people may know, some Caribbean distillers have a pot still with a double retort. So it's
yes, cool.
A bit technical now, maybe.
Yeah.
But
I want one of those.
So you should have bought
My
that.
birthday is coming up in a few months' time, Johnny. So if you can get me one of those, that will be really appreciated.
I will start a crowdfunding page for you, Patrick. No problem.
Super. Thank you for
that. So if you have time, maybe you can get into that. So a regular pot still, the one you have behind you, which many people I think know from whiskey distilling as well, sort of, versus the old type of double retort pot stills that you can find in some places.
Well, the double retort pot still, of course, was invented as an improvement, as a more efficiency, because they only takes 1 distillation run to create your pot still rum. So that is a wonderful step, of course, if you can, instead of 2 distillation runs or 3, as we sometimes do, you take it down to 1. That's a huge efficiency gain. So this is why this double retort still was a wonderful invention, and it creates a very special flavor profile. So you get a different rum from a double retort pot still than from my double distillation, which is not bad, but it's a different kind of style.
Yeah. Okay. Great. So can you tell us something about the 3-year-old rum?
The 3-year-old, yeah, this is one of my base rums. It's double distilled. It is aged for 3 years and a bit in 3 types of wood. So 1/3 is a really secret blend. Don't tell anybody. 1/3 of it is aged in virgin American oak. So standard 200-liter virgin American oak casks. 1/3 is aged in old Oloroso casks, and 1/3 is aged in Pedro Jimenez casks. So it's a very complex blend. Yeah, it's our standard. It's a bit of a way of getting complexity in a reasonably young rum.
Yeah, so for people who don't know, when Patrick is talking about the virgin oak cask, that is the name applies that already. It hasn't been used for aging a distillate before, or wine or whatever. So a new barrel actually, and then refill, and then you so after 3 years you blend all those 3. You blend rum from all those 3 barrels, and then you bottle.
Yes.
Yep, correct.
Basically, that's it. So you get the vanilla, toffee, coconut, clove, cinnamon flavors from the virgin oak, the virgin American oak. You get that nuttiness from the Oloroso, and you get a little bit of sweet dark chocolate from the PX casks.
So, and where did the name Flying Dutchman come from? I think we know.
It was a nice name.
Well,
I came up with it at a Friday evening like this.
yeah.
I don't have a social life. Yeah, this is my social life. They're talking to you. Yeah.
I didn't want to mention that to anyone here, but okay. Now you've done it. Okay.
Patrick, are you also planning to use other barrels than former sherry casks? Because I think you are fond of sherry casks.
I do have a sherry fetish, as my brother likes to say. Yeah. Yeah, but don't tell anybody. But our Father's Day special release will be a port cask.
Okay, great.
I hope, if it's good, because I haven't tasted it yet. So,
I can taste for you.
Yeah,
and
come
Johnny
over.
can do
You're
it,
always
so.
welcome. You know that. So yeah, that will be a port cask, I think.
So a 3-year-old in a port cask, or a 6-year-old?
Yeah, that's the idea.
Okay, great. So,
but I haven't tasted them yet because they're somewhere in the back of my freaking warehouse, and I don't know where they are. So I have to send somebody to go and find them, and dig them out.
Yeah. Well, I've been to your warehouse, and well, good luck. Okay, man.
I think there's 500 casks in front of them. I have to remove 500 casks to get to this one. So to these
should be good. Yeah, do you want to talk about the spirit safe a bit, or do you want to move on to the next part of your presentation and your other
I don't have a presentation as normal, you know
that.
Okay.
Okay.
We can go to the next rum. Let's go to the next rum.
Okay, great. And people can do it side by side, even.
So I think the interesting part is that the next rum is basically the same rum, a little bit older. It's 6 years old, I think, if I remember correctly. And this rum is aged exclusively in Oloroso casks. So here comes my sherry fetish again. So there you get the typical notes from Oloroso and what Oloroso does to the rum. So what influence it has on the rum, as opposed to a mixture of cask in the first glass that we tasted. Here you can see what influence does that Oloroso sherry have on the rum.
Yeah, Evelyn has a question. Yeah, this is a PX cask, Evelyn.
No, this is is this PX or Oloroso?
This is PX, right? Or am I drunk already?
Oh, for crying out! You wrote the letter so slow. How can I read that? Yeah, I'm old.
Yeah, I know. I'm getting old as well.
How am I supposed to read that? Is this the PX or is this the Oloroso?
It's PX. Yeah.
That explains the absence of the nuttiness. So okay, I wasn't wrong in tasting it.
It's a PX. Yeah.
I thought my taste was going.
No problem. So, well done, Evelyn.
Thank God somebody's paying attention.
Yeah.
This is what you're getting if you invite me on for these things. The things turn into chaos.
Yeah. Duly noted.
So this is the PX one, yeah. Again, it's the same story, but it's different. That it doesn't have the nuttiness, and that's thank God, because I didn't get the nuttiness on this one.
So there's one question related to the cask as well. I think it was Simon who thought that the bourbon industry in America had the monopoly on using virgin oak, but that's not the case. But maybe you can elaborate on that a bit.
No, as long as you have money and you pay for them, you can get them shipped.
Yeah, money talks, right?
I think there's nothing wrong with using bourbon casks. Yeah, all my friends in the Scottish whiskey industry use bourbon casks instead of virgin oak. I think the big advantage of using virgin oak cask or buying virgin oak cask is that you can tell them how you want the cask made. So these casks, we buy 40-foot high cubes, which contain 210 casks at a time. and we say, I want 2 containers, and I want them 24 months air dried. I want toasted heads and charred heads, and I want a number 4 char on the body. And then I want it with galvanized hoops, because in this shitty climate here, galvanized hoops prevent your cask from rotting and falling apart after a couple of years in my damp warehouse. So yeah, so then you can dictate, or you can tell them, this is how I want the cask made. So you have more predictable outcome. If I buy a bourbon cask, it all depends on how the bourbon producer had the cask made. I cannot influence that. It all depends on what type of bourbon was in there and for how long. So if I buy virgin oak, I can basically, make the rules. This is how I want the cask made.
So are you saying that if you buy a bourbon barrel or any other barrel, you don't rechar or retoast?
Nobody does that. No.
Okay. So, but can you maybe elaborate a bit what the difference is between charring and toasting?
Yeah, of course, it's a matter of temperature. So what they do is the raw oak, is air dried for in America usually is air dried for 3 to 9 months, and then it gets dried in a kiln. I prefer the air dried wood that is completely air dried, so that's air dried for 24 months. So basically, what they do is they cut the trees, they cut them in staves, and they stack them up outside, and they leave them outside for 2 years until they're dry enough to turn into cask. They can have about 17%, 15 to 17% moisture to turn them into casks. Then they take the staves, they put them in hoops, and they stack them up. They make the cask. Then you have a hooped cask without heads. So basically just the body of the cask. They put that over a fire. And then first you toast that. If you toast it first, you open up the pores of the wood, and you kind of gently caramelize the natural wood sugars that are in the wood. After that, it gets charred, and that charring doesn't take very long. That takes only 30 seconds or 60 seconds. It's very short, but the charring will give you that charcoal layer on the outside. So what flavors the rum is not the charcoal layer. It is the little red layer between the charcoal and the uncharred wood. So if you cut a stave in half, you'll see 3 layers. You'll see the charcoal. You'll see, and how thick that charcoal layer is depends on how long and how heavy the char is. So you can choose charring levels between 1 to 4 or 1 to 5, depending on the cooperage. So how thick that charcoal layer is dependent on your specification on how heavy a char you want. Then you have in between the blackness of the char, the charcoal, and the wood is a little red layer. And that is very important for flavoring your spirits. And there you get the caramelized wood sugars and all those flavors that come with that, that are concentrated in that layer. And that layer depends on the quality of that layer depends on air dried versus kiln dried. It depends on how long the cask was toasted and how heavy the char. So all these things influence the flavor profile of your cask. And if you buy a bourbon cask, there's nothing wrong with bourbon cask. The only thing is that I don't know what they specified. Some bourbon casks are made with raw hoops or raw heads. So the heads of some of the bourbon casks are not charred or toasted, because that saves money. Some bourbon casks are made with 3 months old air dried wood. Some bourbon casks are made with whatever charring level between 1 to 5, and I don't know which one.
Yeah.
So if I want predictable results, and I must admit, my wife says I'm a bit of a control freak. No, yes, okay, I agree with you. It's total nonsense, but yeah. So yeah, I think predictable results are important for a distillery, especially if you want to do some serious production. So then you need to be able to predict how this rum is going to taste 3 years from now or 6 years from now.
Yeah. So, but okay. So taking a different perspective on that. There are.
I know you would.
You're right. Thanks. I'll take it as a compliment. If you look at Scotch whiskey, for instance, but other rum distilleries in the Caribbean as well, right? They rely heavily on a sole supplier of bourbon barrels. So either Jack Daniels, Jim Beam, or whatever, just to have that consistency.
Yes.
And actually, you're saying I don't do that because I want consistency. So.
No, that works as well. You know, it's the thing is that if you buy bourbon casks, you have to buy from that specific distillery to have that kind of consistency, and at least you get repeatable results with that. No, I agree with that statement. That's completely true. But that also limits you to, and you have to keep in mind the first fill of that cask is where most of the flavors come out. So, you know, basically the best of the wood goes into the freaking bourbon.
True. Thank you. So anything you want to add at this point, Patrick?
No, I'm fine.
You good?
Nobody got any difficult questions or anything?
No, no. The easy one where you screwed up with the Oloroso and the PX, but then
yes, well, I tend to do that. You know.
But that's
it's been a long day, Johnny. My day started at 6 this morning. Yeah.
I totally understand. So, any questions for Patrick? Like I said, we can we can add questions later on, maybe if Patrick hasn't fallen asleep yet. But so if there are no questions, I think we have to move on now to Rummieclub in Amsterdam. So we started in Amsterdam, moved all over the place, and then we're back in Amsterdam. Judith and Martijn are there. Hi guys.
Oh. Hello. Hi. Are you still alive, everybody? Not falling asleep?
I think yes. I see some people waving. Yeah.
I see some active people.
I think you're in your loft of your great distillery. So people who haven't been to the distillery, if the Corona has passed, please do visit. It's very nice and yeah, great rum in my opinion. But we'll get to taste that in a moment. So take it away, guys.
Yes, will do. Yeah, we're over here in our distillery in Amsterdam. We are the crazy people who sold our house to start a rum distillery. We went all in and making rum, having fun. I do have a presentation actually. It's mostly pictures, but I do love to show you a bit. We are indeed upstairs in the distillery now, so it has 2 floors. Of course, downstairs is the production floor. And I also already see a question, Evelien, which batch is this? This is batch number 2. So this is our new batch, or we brought it out in January from the Overproof. And we are currently making batch number 3, so that will come in a few months. But this is actually a batch I'm quite proud of. So, but yeah, I do agree, Richard. I love this one, but I'll explain a bit later. It's quite an intense rum. I think you need the time for it. But I'll share my screen to give you a bit more of the presentation. Let's see if that works. Oh, host disabled me. Johnny, I think you need to clear me for screen sharing, or you can share it because you have it too. Both is fine for me. Well, I'll start already with a few things. We have started, well, we thought we were going to build a distillery already 4 or 5 years ago. We were home distillers. And then at some point we were always joking, well, someday we'll have our own distillery. And at some point we said, let's just do it. Let's try. And if it doesn't work out, we just have a lot of rum. Also nice. So we went for it.
I'll try the presentation. I think you should be able to present now. Sorry for
I'll try. Yeah, I see. let's see, PowerPoint. Yes, I think, and now I should be able to put this on. Do you see my screen?
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah.
Clear. Go.
Perfect. Well, it's just for the picture, so well, that's us. You can already see us. This is downstairs. Behind that is the lower part of our mural. We have a graffiti artist, a local graffiti artist who made this for us, and you can also see on our bottles it's quite colorful. And we have different local graffiti artists making artworks for us for different editions. The artwork on the mural is also on our colorful white, which is our base rum. Okay. Yeah, that one. And today we will be trying the Overproof. So that's the other one. This is our distillery. So we are located in Diemen. So at the east side of Amsterdam. And whenever you're around, you can always visit. I work there full time and Martijn works there part time. But I'm usually around just making rum and welcoming people. What is Rummieclub? Well, we make rum from scratch. So as Spirited Union, that's why we could merge. We probably won't, but we could merge because we make rum and we don't flavor our rums. We also find it really important to educate people and share our rum love. So we are into rum because we have a passion for it. We think it's a great spirit, but also because we think it's a bit doesn't get enough love and attention. So we try to explain and give master classes what we do, show them a bit of the production, so they can get some feel with the spirit. And we also make cocktails. That's mostly also well, it's a bit more because of the COVID time. So we got the key of this distillery after a really long delay in December 2019. And when we were ready to sell our first rum, and we had our opening party, that didn't happen because it was March 2020. And we all know what happened then. So we started a cocktail service with me on the bike, bringing everybody some fun summer cocktails with our rum. A good way to be able to sell some.
You actually turned a friend of mine into an alcoholic. She didn't used to drink, but now she actually ordered your cocktail box twice, I think in 2 months time, but okay.
Yeah, I saw that one. No, it's
very good.
Just a warning.
Yeah. No, they tend to work really well with their, how do you say it, easygoing, fun cocktails, but with a lot of love. And we make all the products in there ourselves also, and of course with our own rum. This is what we have right now. So as you can see, it's only unaged rums. We don't have the luxury, as Rogier maybe has, to ask for a 3-year-old rum. We have to wait for 3 years. It's a lot of patience, but we'll get there. We'll get there someday. So we do hope to, at the end of the year, have our first aged rums. We did have one for the crowdfunding, but not a real normal one. Oh, and I already talked about the cocktails, but we still do that too. And we hope to do that more on events too. Also for us, a way to finance the casks to fill, because we don't get money for it right now. That will take a while. Yeah, then I'll explain a bit more about the rum. We also make rum from molasses. We do also import some frozen sugarcane juice. So you never know, maybe we'll also make a sugarcane juice rum someday. For now, it's mostly for our master classes to let them taste some sugarcane juice. We import it from Paraguay. It's organic molasses. You can see it on the right side. That's our sugarcane. Well, that's where we got our molasses from. Very sticky stuff, so I'm usually quite dirty with all the molasses all over me. We're still learning stuff. And well, you already heard a bit about the basics. I thought I'll just put it down for you guys. These are the steps we are usually following. Where we also think fermentation is the big key, and that's where we also focus. And I think that's a good moment for you guys to pour batch number 2 of the Overproof. For this one, it's quite intense. It's quite intense because we have 3 different marks of rum in there. So 3 different rums we make in our distillery, and they have different fermentations. So I think this is the bottle you're having. So it's a label is made by Meneer de Vries. So it's also a local graffiti artist. It's based on his inspiration of animals getting drunk from overripe fruits. So I really like that. One of the marks that's in this rum is made with wild yeast. Well, as Patrick already told, yeasts are everywhere. And we got these raspberries. They grow in our garden, so not in the distillery, but at home in the garden. And then we got the yeast from there and made a batch with it. We also want to try, or we also trying different kinds of wild yeast, but for now the raspberry yeast we got there gave us the best results. And another part of this rum is a fermentation with dunder. So dunder is what you have left over, or backset also, what you have left over in your still after the previous run. And then we use that in the fermentation to give it more acidity and some nutrients and stuff. So that also gives it a bit of esters, flavor compounds. And the third rum is our base rum, where we try to balance it out or give it a bit more glue to combine the parts together. And there we got this rum. It needs to rest for a while, so we made this one already half a year ago. It needs to rest around 3 or 4 months, and then we have this one. So this is our second batch, and we are definitely not consistent. So maybe at some point, it's also not our goal right now. So we love to experiment, and we're small. So this is a batch from 150 bottles. I think we're halfway down right now, but we are already currently making the next batch. Yeah, we love experimenting, so that's okay for now for us.
Yeah, so Judith, to just maybe elaborate a bit, if you use the word, the term marks, actually we maybe call it a recipe. So you actually make 3 recipes of rum with different yeasts, different fermentation times. You get a different rum. There's a different recipe, and you blend 3 of those recipes together to make this rum, right? So and like you said, you have batch distillation actually. So you are a pot still is a batch distillation, but you work with small batches, a certain amount of bottles, and then you work on another batch, and guaranteed that the batches will not be the same because of the fact you use wild yeast, which can give surprising results. So you actually let the yeast take you there. As for I think Patrick, who has a 3-year-old rum for a number of years now, he wants a certain consistency in his 3-year-old rum. So he's looking for a consistency while you guys are, going all in. This is our rum batch, 150 bottles. This is it, and you either like it or you don't. And yeah, so that's great. So cheers, everyone. Oh
yeah, cheers. Good luck. Don't take it's 58%, so it's quite a intense rum. The ones we had before were all around 40%, so this is something different. Keep that in mind.
So how many liters of rum do you make for so the single batch. So 150 bottles. Is like 120 liters or something. 100.
Yeah, it also depends on when we get it out of the still, it's around 80%. So we bring that down, but the batch is as big as we want it to be. So it depends on what marks we get out, and then we blend it. Maybe we don't want the whole batch of the wild yeast. We only want a part because it was very intense. And then we get a certain amount of liters, and there we make the next batch with.
Yeah,
Can you tell us something about the ice still, Judith? Because that's a very modern way of distilling spirits.
It is
compared with the copper pot still or the double retort still.
Yeah, it is, and there's a lot to say about them. They are quite modern, but also just really complex to really explain well. What we liked about it, it's also from the Netherlands, so that's cool. It's from Woerden. They have their, how do you say that? They have a computer on them, so I can say, oh, it should be at this temperature. It should do that. It should do that. But you still make all the choices yourself. So some people say, oh, it's only pushing a button, but then you really need to know which button you need to push. So there's still some definitely a lot to learn about this. Still, it has different options, so that's something we liked. It has the opportunity to make different styles of rum, because it also has a robot in there, and it can open or close the outflowing of liquids, and therefore change the amount of reflux it has. It also is very energy efficient, so we really like that. It has some copper parts in there, but I would also really like to also have a copper pot still next to it. So maybe someday. We're not there yet.
Maybe Patrick can sell you his old ones.
Yeah, I don't think they'll fit over here, but yeah, this one it's a 500 liter, so 34 times smaller than the ones from Patrick, but still a bit bigger than that one from Mark. But yeah, this is our still, and we are happy with it, and we use different programs for different rums and also different cuts, of course. Yeah.
Yeah. So you mentioned some reasons why you chose the ice still. Actually, I think one of them would be that is the price. I think of having a pot still, the ice still, and not a copper pot still like Patrick is showing us there. Is that also a reason? So the financial side of things, or?
I actually wouldn't really know, because I wouldn't know what a 500 liter copper pot still with the same stuff would be. I'm not sure. Maybe Patrick can say something about it.
Sorry. Yes. 500 liter copper pot still, I would say around 40,000 euros.
It will be the same. We bought this.
But my current distillery is about 2.5 million.
Yeah, something different. Yeah, so I guess probably not the price point, because we bought this still for around 35,000, but I heard they had gone up, so I think they will be as pricey as a copper pot still.
But it's probably also because it's got a lot of automation behind it, and that's also expensive. The copper pot still, of course, was the price for the pot still, and you know, if you're gonna automate that, then you're gonna double the price on that as well.
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's efficiency more than pricing at this point, right?
Yeah, for us it's mostly that we have multiple ways of distilling.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's most of the part. Yeah.
Can I ask a technical question?
Sure. I also have my technical guy with me.
No. Is there so how much copper is in there? Can you change the copper surface area, or is it fixed?
A good question. We are still trying to find our sweet spot in this. We had a copper, how do you say that?
A wafer.
Copper wafer in there, and also
like a catalyst converter.
But we are not really happy right now with it. So I would love a bit more copper contact.
Why would you want more copper?
I feel there's still some impurities in there that I would hope the copper could help me with. But that's still, we're trying to find stuff out.
No, that's the question actually I wanted to propose to both of you actually, maybe, or even Rogier or Mark. Can you, one of you, explain why copper is the main is used for stills, and why you guys are talking about getting impurities out and whatever? So what is the main reason that most pot stills are at least the top part of most stills is made of copper?
Well, copper has been used for centuries for making pot stills because it was quite malleable. So if you take a hammer, you can hammer it out into all kinds of pretty shapes. And then with a little bit of lead, you can solder it so that it's airtight and in this case, liquid tight. So it made a very convenient material for making pot stills because it was simply the way material that was widely available and easy to use for making pot stills. When in the 70s, people started making pot stills out of stainless steel, they found out that although stainless steel is much more durable because copper is a wonderful material, but one of the big downsides to copper pot stills is that they wear out. Because every time you distill an acidic mash in it, because everything we distill is acidic, but it's whiskey or Geneva or rum, your mash is always acidic. So every time you distill an acidic mash in a copper pot still, it's going to take out a little bit of your copper. That that means that over time your copper pot stills wears out. I just got rid of one of my 2,000 liter pot stills because it was completely worn through. That means it starts leaking, which is not a good thing for a pot still. And then in the 70s, they started using, because it was more durable, stainless steel, which of course is more difficult to form. But once it's formed and once it's in place, it will last you for eternity. So it will not wear out whatsoever. That is a huge advantage of stainless steel over copper. The only downside is that they found out that during the distillations, even if the raw material was the same, even if the still shape was the same, the heating method was the same, they found out that the still produced different flavors than before. And then they went looking for why does this freaking still produce different flavors than the one we have over there, which is exactly the same, heated in the same way with the same raw material, and it still acts differently. And they found out that copper played an important part in two ways. First is ester formation. So copper acts as a catalyst converter where you have acids and alcohols together in the still, and they will together form new esters, and copper plays a part in that. And the second, maybe even more important, is what Judith was hinting for before, was that the copper takes away sulfur, because copper is really a material that really likes to bind sulfur to it. So this is why copper is used in pot stills. One of the reasons is that it binds sulfur.
It's prettier.
And it's very pretty. But they do wear out, and that it's a cost. I was in Scotland visiting a friend of mine who runs a big distillery in Scotland, and they went through one of those tubular condensers that we have, and they are 85,000 euros each for a tubular condenser, and they wear them out in 12 months.
Wow.
So it's also an expensive hobby.
Yeah. So thanks, Patrick. So you actually made a small bridge. You talked about getting sulfur out. You talked about esters, and again, so someone commented that your rum is funky. I don't think it's by accident that it's funky. So
No, definitely
please continue
not.
your presentation and maybe elaborate a bit on the funkiness of Rummieclub Overproof.
Definitely, especially our Overproof is meant to be funky. We love funky rums. So as an example, we love like rums from Haiti, like the Clarins, or maybe the Jamaican unaged rums. They were really an example for us. And our base rum, the colorful white, is less funky, but still quite characterful. We are not known for our subtle rums. And also our aged rums, we don't have them yet, but of course we are making them. We don't really want to go too funky over there, but we rather go quite intense. So maybe more examples. We hope to go near St. Lucia or Guyana, or well, those are examples for us. Mm-hmm. So probably quite a rummy thing. So we also love to get the molasses flavors back into the spirit. So that's also something important for us. Okay. Let's say, yeah, something about the barrels. We mostly have ex-bourbon barrels, and we also have learned that there's a big difference in ex-bourbon barrels. At first, we just said, "Oh, just give us a bourbon barrel; it's fine." And now we know there's a big difference. We have different sizes, and also we learned that it's way more cost efficient to have a 200 liter than to have a 100 liter. So that's why we're not there for 5 decades yet. But we hope to bring out our first aged rum at the end of the year. So these are mostly ex-bourbon barrels, but we have filled a ex-sherry barrel yesterday, and ex-cognac barrel we have too. So for us, it costs around 5 batches to fill up a barrel. So it's a bit more work. Let's see. Oh yeah, here you can see a bit more about yeah. Oh, well, that's already kind of it. So if there are more questions, I would love to hear then. Or not, also an option.
See if there's anything in the chat.
Oh yeah, of course. Where's Johnny?
Rogier had to leave us already. Sorry for that, but well, you guys are still here, so great. So thanks, Judith. So you talked about having your first aged rum at the end of this year. I think you mentioned. So what's the age gonna be?
Well, as long as our distillery is alive. So we have started in December 2019, but then we needed to build it further, and we started distilling in January. Yeah. So we filled up the casks in February.
Okay.
2020. So yeah.
Okay. Great. Okay. So are there any questions left for our panel at this point? Yeah. Unfortunately, Rogier had to leave at this point. So, but we have 3 panel members still here. Any questions left for them?
Yes, Patrick, are you also experimenting with different kinds of rum styles for the future? Or do you stick to sherry and the podcast rums as your signature rums?
I will always experiment, of course, a lot. That is the fun of having a distillery, is to experiment. It's just that, you know, as a distillery, sometimes you have to balance your experimentation against doing things that are repeatable. So yeah, no, we experiment, but we're not experimenting with adding wild yeast to the wash, or not experimenting with adding thunder to the wash. We don't have plans in that direction.
Okay. So, okay. So for everyone attending at this point, I would like to start a small poll. I'm launching it now. So can you, I'm just curious, of the 6 rums you've tasted today, there are, oh wow, somebody, Rob also has the Overproof over there. I saw people having the Grondel over there, so a lot of fans, but quite curious to see what your top 2 are. So please, if you want to enter your votes, I'm just for fun to see what everyone thinks about the 6 rums we had today. And if we should do another Dutch Pride tasting maybe next year, because I've read a lot of things about whiskey distilleries producing rum. There's a new peated rum distilled in the Netherlands coming somewhere, being launched this year. So a lot of interesting things happening, I think, in the Netherlands at this point regarding rum. So. Has everyone voted? A couple of people not yet, I think. So I think we can end the polling now, and we should be at, well, okay. Okay, I think you can see the results. So the number 1 for today would be the Grondel. Go Mark, with 8 votes.
Thank you all.
And a close, very close second would be the Zuidam 6 year. So and the other 3 rums are very close to each other. So yeah, great. I think great results. It's so Zuidam. So the Zuidam 3 year, you have to do some adjustments, Patrick. I think either rechar, retoast, new barrels. Do something about the 3 year, but your 6 year it's up there in the top 2 of the people. So
I think number 3 is a nice beginner's rum. If
Yeah.
you're already used to other rums, then yeah, you'll always look for more spices, more wider range of taste, etc. So, but it's a good beginner's rum. So if you want to invite somebody, hey, let's taste the rum, get a Zuidam.
Oh well, actually the people have spoken. So at this point, from these people, well, I think Grondel has done it, and so good to you, Mark. So coming back to what I said, size of the still doesn't matter. it's the quality of the rum. So hopefully you can get things done over there and start producing more rum, and we can get them here in the south and the middle of the Netherlands as well. So everyone, thanks very much for being here. Like I said, we had a sold out house, a packed house. Thanks to you guys. Thank you very much. This was our first tasting for this year. Next month, we'll be back with a MOBA tasting, great rum from South Africa. For those who haven't tried it yet, please go to our website, clubrum.nl events, and you'll see the whole lineup of this year. Thank you very much to the panel, Patrick, Judith, Martijn, in this case, Rogier, who's gone, I think, and Mark. Thank you very much for doing this. You made my wish come true of, presenting Dutch rum to fans, and like I said, I will post this video on our YouTube channel, so people from abroad can also get a taste, so to speak, of what we do here. Don't forget to use the promotion code from Slijterij Blesgraaf. Slijterij Blesgraaf, I'm sorry, Slijterij Zeewijk, Richard Blesgraaf. He has an amazing assortment of rum, so please check him out. Do join the Spirited Union promotion with Gal and Gal, and maybe you can win a trip to Aruba and take us with you. So that would be great. So thanks again. Thank you very much, and well, have a great evening, and hope to see you again very, very soon.